I just want to start the stream. Okay, here we are. I am live. I'm drinking more water. Hello, everyone. Let's go to the full screen cam so you can see my face. I want to pick up from where I left off yesterday because I felt a little bad about that, about where we left at, and frankly about my performance. So here's the shot. This is exactly as we were looking at it. And, I made this really rough mesh and I tried to project the texture onto it. So let me switch over to that. There we go. And here's our mesh. Let's just rotate around it a little bit. Let's do a little orbit action. And, this is, not a great mesh. It's really not very good. Hey, did OBS just die on me? No, it didn't. There it is. Screen left, me in the lower left. So here, I can talk to you while I'm working. Anyway, this projection never worked. So I'm going to select the mesh again, and I did a little experimentation here. So if we click on a lizard, we can see, hey, there's a lizard JPEG. I also have an eye JPEG because I was goofing around earlier. But I'm going to hit save and replace. And if you remember, I hit run, and then I got this error message. Meshes must be set to create a texture and have texture coordinates for this operation. And I don't ever remember seeing this before. And this will happen in the middle of jobs. And so I'm kind of happy to be doing this as a live stream because I want everyone to understand that I don't care what software you're using. I don't care literally what it is. Because whatever software you're using, you'll run into problems like this and you'll be like, what? I don't understand. Like, I've done this before. And you get frustrated. So my recommendation at that point is either go back to the documents and read, RTFM, or minimally go to YouTube and see if there's a tutorial about it. I do that frequently, depending on the quality of the documentation. But in this case, I know Synthesize. I've read the documentation cover to cover. And still, every time I do, I'm like, I didn't know it could do that. So what I discovered is if I clicked run all, what? Then it would just do a texture extract. And that was great. So wonderful. Let's hide the mesh selection. And let's make this solid meshes. Where is that? It's under view, right? Solid meshes. But then this is what I get. I get this kind of weird, like the edges of all the polygons of triangles in this case are all have the texture. Show me the texture map. Okay. Well, why is it being applied to the object like that? And clearly, this just looks like a planar projection. I know why this is so ugly, by the way, because when you do a texture projection and use average pixel, it's kind of going to be garbagey. Let's run all again with best pixel and see what kind of results we get there. But I already know that the mesh isn't going to improve in terms of just the corners of the edges of the polygons. I don't know why that is. I perhaps will figure that out at some point. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is just how sloppy this mesh is. So I exported this. I just, today, Synthesize, file, export. And then exported it as, mesh and OBJ. So I exported it as an OBJ. And I brought it into Blender over here. Hey, look, there it is. Neat. And I could see, you know, it's got holes in it, and there's like, looks like non-manifold geometry, or like things that are sharing vertices. That, anyway, it's ugly. But I do recommend that if you're really going to do this kind of work, it's often best to just do this right in Blender. So let's fix this up a little bit. I'm going to hit X on that. I'm going to delete only the face. Really? I thought I selected the entire face. Maybe I can't from this angle. How about that? There we go. X, only faces. Oh, I probably should delete the edge too. X, and then only edges and faces is really what I should have done. So that looks better. And then if I select these two and hit F, that will fill the face. And then let's look over here. This looks like a ugly mess. I think this is a hole. It is a hole. So I'm going to select that edge, and then fill that face, and do the same for here. And we'll go. All right. And then, you know, so these are the tools that I kind of wish existed in Synthesize. Let's delete that vertex. That's going to leave a little gap there, but that's okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to clean up this mesh so it's not so completely just ugly and awful. We can do that with mesh, clean up, delete loose first. So that's neat. And then you get a little thing down here. Hey, let's do faces too. So it didn't remove anything. That's fine. Mesh. I just kind of go through this. And if I was going to do this a lot, I would just write out a script, a Python script, and automate it. But let's see. Let's clean up. Where is that? I just did it earlier. So let's decimate the geometry. And we're going to turn that up or down a bit to like 8. I think we have to select all before we do that. Mesh, decimate. Hang on one second. I'm just thinking. Clean up, decimate geometry. That's a little better. There we go. Now we can just dial that down. Just makes it a little more manageable. Now we can identify where like some trouble parts are. And this is probably going to be fine. And now we can just do some manual fixing. So X, vertices. Let's kill that vertex. Let's get rid of this. I didn't select a face there, but you can see where, you know, those in Synthesize, when you do, what is it called? Remove and repair, I think, or it sometimes just causes these huge problems. So it doesn't do a great job of that. But I'm going to delete that vertex. And man, this is ugly. Hold on. Zoom like that. Orbit around. Okay, let's see what we got here. This. That's a problem. Let's delete that face. And here's the other confession I must make. So yesterday when I said, you know, you probably should just load this in Blender and just fix it, clean it up there as opposed to cleaning it up in Synthesize where the tools are not very good. This is, I should have done that. I should have just done that because sometimes you get lazy and sometimes you, the non-specific you, meaning one, meaning me. Anyway, so there we go. Kill that. This is a bad face. All right, there we go. Let's delete that edge. Let's delete this face. The moral of this story is don't cut corners and try to clean it all up in Synthesize. So only edges and faces. Let's do this one too. Let's cut that edge and this edge and this edge. All right. That's better. And now we can basically just start selecting edges and making faces out of those. Doing this work here in Blender is obviously much faster. Here, let's do those two, face, because I want to keep these as triangles for the time being, face, and we'll do this and this. This is just much better for editing meshes. Synthesize is not great for modeling. I can probably vertex. I think there's a way to rip vertices. No, I don't want to do that. I'm trying to remember what software it was where it was like dissolve vertices. There it is. It was Blender. I thought maybe it was Lightwave or something, but it's not. Let's dissolve a few more of these. And so this is when you do in Synthesize where you go vertex. Here, hold on. X. So when you do dissolve vertices, this is what I think that the remove and repair should be. Mesdo VFX, hi. How you doing? This is me making up for what I recorded yesterday not being totally good. So let's dissolve that vertex as well. And then some of this stuff in here is a little funky. I'm just going to delete that vertex. So again, like I said, Synthesize, not good for modeling. And the tools could be a lot better. And they should be, because I figure there's no real reason to faces. Hang on. Let me just see what I'm trying to delete here. There's no, like, once you put a feature into your software, it should work. I mean, it should just be good. It shouldn't just work. It should be good. And some of the stuff in Synthesize is just a little slapdash. And the argument that I've always heard is, well, it's for 3D tracking and it's not a modeling program. But you started to put modeling stuff in there, so make it good. All right, so faces, that's gone. What else do we have here? Just trying to clean this up a little bit. And F on that, and then we'll select that and that edge and hit F and fill in that hole. Okay, and then this is a mess over here. Obviously, all of those attempts at fixing in Synthesize, I just shouldn't have done that. That was foolish. X faces and this face here, that's a mess. These are all just like intersected faces, and it wasn't the triangulate tool. It was anytime I tried to do remove and repair or anything like that. Vertices, let's just kill all these vertices. It's just a mess. And that vertex too. Okay. I'm being very careful to not commit one of my own pet peeves right now. And that pet peeve is when I watch tutorials from people, only edges and faces, when they say vertice as a singular. It makes me crazy. No, it's a vertex. All right, let's get rid of that vertex as well. And we'll select these edges and hit F, and then this and this. And then I think this is probably good enough, hopefully, at this point. There are still some things in here where it like kind of spikes out a bit. So I'm going to go dissolve vertices on that so that we don't get these like little mountains in the middle of a mesh that are obviously weird and wrong. So let's dissolve that vertex. All right. I could probably use the knife tool and, turn these back into triangles. That might be nice. It might be nice if I actually committed to that. Enter. What else? Did I see any other weird, non-triangles in here? Okay, good. This is good enough. Then I'm going to show you one of my favorite add-ons for Blender. And this, I watched it before 2 hours ago. It's called Quad Remesher. And if I select all of these vertices just by hitting the A key, and I do, in the quad remesh over here on the right of this panel, these are all the things that, this is just Blender, and then this is the add-on. And then I can say how many vertices or how many quads do I want? Let's do, 1,000, and just remesh it. There we go. Quad remesher. So some of this stuff is because there are non-shared vertices, which are a little bit of a mess. And then it really will show you like where problems are. So I'm going to undo that, and let's fix this a little bit. Let's delete that vertex because that was obviously a problem. And then some of these, if I select all, and then vertex merge vertex parent. No. So what I was saying about, when you don't use software every day, you can forget, like, how does that work again? So that's why when I was struggling with the texture projection and going, how does this work? Refer back to the manual, search the internet for answers, but don't think that you're experiencing anything that I don't experience every day. That happens all the time. There's anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm trying to merge the vertices. So by distance and smooth vertices. It's under cleanup, I think, under mesh, cleanup. Merge by distance. That's what I wanted. And I'm just going to turn this up a bit. I don't want to turn it up too high. I basically want to delete I want to just merge any vertices that are kind of sitting in the same space. Okay. Great. And then I believe if I go here, I can say, so I don't use Blender every day. I use it from time to time when I need it. Press M. Oh boy, this is gonna be funny. I should really, when you don't know what to do, look at the chat and see what people are telling you what to do. The other funny thing is, I play. I'm doing okay. Thanks for asking. I play a lot of chess, and I play a lot of chess puzzles, really. And so when I watch other people playing chess, I'm like, oh, come on, the move, it's right there. And then when you're playing, you're like, I totally don't see that. And you miss it, and you go back and you watch your old games or whatever. It's just hilarious. Thanks for subscribing to my channel. All right, anyway, I've merged those, and now, hey, maybe you can help me out. So all I want to do now is have all of this just be flat shaded, not smooth shaded. And I forget that button, or that what do you call that even? Normals, yes. Well, yes. The normals are just calculated in terms of their right click. Okay, I'm right clicking, and then what? Face, shade flat. Bingo. There you go. Shade flat, shade smooth. That's exactly what I was looking for. Let's go back to the knife tool. Let's cut that. And enter. And are there any other weird, goofy ones in here? No. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Now it's probably okay. So if I remesh it now, there are still, some problem areas. And oh, this is the other thing. So you see these, what are those called? You can recalc the normals by clicking Shift N in edit mode. I'm going to undo that. Shift N in edit mode. Yeah, I don't really. It's not recalculating the normals. It's defining the edges. So if I select all of this and I go edge, clear seam, that's what I really wanted to do. So these blue things, aren't these the seams? Isn't that when I was clear sharp? That's what I wanted to do. I got it. I know what I'm doing. So edge clear sharp. Yeah, no, that's not it. What are these? Why are these blue? What have I forgotten? Please help me out, because I would figure it out on my own, but it'll just be much faster if we just do this. I'm confused. What's going on here? We're in Blender, and I'm trying to get rid of these sharp edges on this mesh. It just should be smooth. And I can't quite figure it out. Edge, clear freestyle edge, edge, clear sharp from vertices. That was it. I did it. Okay, so let's undo. Let's go all the way back here. I'm going to select all. They were already selected, but I'm going to go edge, clear sharp from vertices. Is that what I did? I think that was right. Clear sharp from vertices. And then remesh it. That is not it. Anyway, I was just trying to show how great Quad Remesher is. And it is really great, but right now we have a problem exists between computer and chair situation going on. Let's get rid of that vertex too. And I'm going to re-export this just because it's a slightly better, more cleaned up mesh. You can turn it off from settings. Is that a rock? No, it's not a rock. Let's go back to Synthesize for a second. What you're looking at here is the mesh for this object. Let's orbit a little bit. I want to see, yeah, there we go. Texture panel. All right, lock. Okay, so this, yeah, this is it's this head. But it's not meant to be great. It's just meant to be there for a texture projection, and I've already gone a bit too far in all of this. Anyway, let's go back to Blender. Select all. Let's make a another window. Come on, digital dexterity. And let's go to UV editor. I'm going to select everything here. I'm going to unwrap it. I'm going to just do Smart UV Project. Sure, unwrap. And there, so now we have UV coordinates assigned to this. I could probably make better. Yeah, no, this is fine. Let's try that one more time. Unwrap. Minimum stretch. That's probably better. Okay, good. So we're just going to use these UVs. All right, fine. Save this. I'm going to save this as tutorials, GeoH one tracker, lizard, project files. Let's make a Blender folder in here. And we'll call this lizard. Version, we'll just make it match the version number of the Synthesize scene file, which is going to be version 4, or version 3, I think, actually. Save Blender file. Come on, baby. There we go. All right, good. Let's go back to Synthesize. So something you can do in here. Oh, I forgot to export this. File export. We want to save this as a wavefront OBJ file. And we're going to put it in the same folder. Tutorials. Lizard. Project files. Geometry. And I'm going to call this Blender. Just so I know where it came from. Include selection only. That's the only thing in the scene, really. It doesn't matter. I've noticed that when I export from Blender and bring things into Maya, sometimes there are scaling differences that I have to worry about. But I have Synthesize, but I have not used it because I have no clue how to use it. I've used Nuke a lot. I've used a lot of Nuke. I've used very little Silhouette, but everything that I typically do that I would do in Silhouette, I just do in either Fusion or in DaVinci Resolve at this point in my life. Okay, anyway. Let's get this mesh back into Synthesize. I've exported it. I'm going to go into Synthesize, and here's something you can do. You can do this on a PC. Or you can do this on the PC. I just don't know how. Actually, I don't know if you can on PC. But in Mac OS, I can hit Help, and I can go Replace. I think I can do that. Hey, look. Import, replace mesh. So, exactly. So I want to replace that mesh. So I'm going to go File, Import. Maybe I'll just have to go back and do a search for it again. Where was that? Replace mesh. There it is, right at the top of the list. Replace mesh, and then I'm going to replace that with our project files, geometry, lizard from Blender. Do you want to strip the normals? Yeah, because we don't need those. Now, Why did that happen? I have no idea why that happened. That's weird. Let's just do file import mesh and bring in the mesh that I just made. Yeah, strip the vertices or strip the normals. I do not know why this has come in. If I do a replace, it should, I didn't do any transforms on that mesh in Blender. So I think it might be because this mesh is parented to that other object. Anyway, we're just going to move it over there. I could do this. I don't really trust this. Right? Like, let's look. Track mesh. What is this called? This is called track mesh 011. Let's call this track mesh 03. And let's call this track mesh. Actually, let's call this track mesh 03. That's good. And then, okay. And then this track mesh, we're going to call this track mesh 02. And so I'm going to show you something that everybody kind of freaks out about. I'm going to launch Cynthia. I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to say, I have to leave that over on this screen. So I'm going to say make TRK mesh 03's transform. TRK, how do I spell this? MESH 02's transform. Okay, yeah. So that's neat. That's neat that I can do that. But obviously the center of this mesh is not, like, it got moved. And so it's not rotated correctly. It's anyway, we're just going to have to kind of mash it into place, it looks like. The other thing I can do is if I bring up the, let's exit out of here. Don't ever type quit in here because you'll quit out of Synthesize. But if you type exit, you will exit out of Cynthia. Let's bring up the GeoH track toolbar. And I'm going to say edit pivots. Let's zoom out a bit. Let's look where the pivot is for this thing. I can't even see it. Just dolly out. Dollying out. Holy cow, it's seen as gigantic. All right. I take it all back. Let me reselect this. Track mesh 03. What's going on here? Why can't I select anything? I love Synthesize UI. Very elegant. Oh, don't we all love the UI of Synthesize? It's actually, a lot of the UI is actually really great in terms of its organization, but a lot of it is just Byzantine. And then sometimes things like this happen where I go, why can't I select anything? I can now select it in this viewport, but I can't select it here, and it's because why? Lasso entire meshes. I can't select in these viewports anymore. That's where it gets frustrating. That's where the Synthesize user interface gets really frustrating, where things like this happen and you're like, why can't I just click on that? Because I could before, Here, I'm gonna try and click on this sphere. Ugh, nightmare. Anyway, let me go back into Blender and just see if where this exists in space. So it's really far back. I'm going to re-export this. I'm going to hit Tab to bring it back into edit mode. I'm going to go to the top view. I'm going to grab it on the Z axis. Oh, I have to select all. There we go. Oh, I'm going to grab it and then I'm going to move it all right into the middle here. And I'm going to move it down a bit. Grab on the Y axis, Z axis is up, down here. Okay, that's better. Let's re-export this. Just so at least it's, the center is generally in the center of the object, of the mesh. All right, let's go wavefront OBJ, and let's re-export this as lizard V0003 Blender. I don't need the materials, even though it already wrote it out earlier, but there we go. Back in Synthesize, I'm going to select, can't select anything anymore. It's weird. I'm just going to relaunch Synthesize. I guarantee you, after I relaunch Synthesize and reload the scene, I still can't select it. And there's, so that means, what does that mean? So something is going on. Like sometimes the like whole button will remain selected when you move from room to room, and that can cause problems. But there's something right now that's preventing me from selecting Track Mesh 03. Anyway, file, import, replace mesh. We're going to replace it with itself. Yeah, strip the normals. And now it's going to be in the wrong position completely, but that's okay. Oh, I just clicked and I deselected it. How fun. Why? Man. Yeah, it's great. We're doing great here. We're doing just fine. Edit pivots. That's why. See up here? It's where it says edit pivots. This is what I was talking about. I've turned edit pivots off. There we go. So if you forget that you had whole selected, or if you forget that you had edit pivot selected, you don't get a lot of help from the software. And that is a flaw in my humble estimation. So edit pivots is off, whole is off. So now I can drag things around. Gee, jeepers creepers. All right, let's move that up here and let's rotate it around so that it's generally in the right direction and kind of facing the way that this should be looking. So if I hold on the control key on these little gnomon gizmo deals, let's also turn on back faces, because I think I may have, the normals might be backward. I think when I recalculated the normals in Blender earlier, I think it flipped the normals. No big deal. It's fine. Okay, I think we're doing okay here. There we go. Now I've generally gotten this in the right place. It took a while. Like I said, I love that I'm doing this as a live stream, because it really does give an indication of, you know, these are the issues that you run into when you're working. All right, let's rotate this a little bit more that way and move it in a little bit. So there we go. Good enough. Let me turn off We're going to rename this track mesh 03. All right, we love it raw. Okay, there, that's better. That's good. Now I can hide track mesh 02. This absolutely has UVs. You saw me make them. They're nice. I should be able, with the texture panel, to say set file. I'm going to set it to the that, where is it? Renders the lizard JPEG. I'm going to reset it to that. And by just setting it, it's now going to load that in. So you can see that that's mapping onto our object. It's just the wrong map. So we have to recalculate this. We're going to use best pixel again. And we'll leave it as like a 4K map, 4K by 4K. I'm just going to run this. Hide mesh selection. Yeah, good. Run. Okay. Again, meshes must be set to create a texture and have texture coordinates for this operation. Okay, well, hold on. Let's click on create texture. Run. There we go. But I want to point out that that checkbox on create texture on the old mesh, that was checked. And it still didn't work. There we go. Ah, finally. All right, let's close this and go window, floating, perspective. And we'll drag that out because that's all wrong. Let's lock this. Let's move some of these toolbars around. There we go. And there we go. So, all right, let's go to solid meshes. And again, with the texture panel turned on, when you turn on hide mesh selection, it's going to turn off that red highlighting. So now if I orbit around, oh, there we go. Look at that. That's nice. That's all I was trying to do. That should not have been that hard. So in review, Synthesize needs better modeling tools. If you're going to put modeling tools in there, make them better. Okay, good. Whew. And then we'll just orbit around a little bit more. And then, okay, relock to the viewport. Oh, this toolbar should be all the way at the bottom. Okay, this is good enough. I don't need that viewport anymore because I just have this perspective viewport here. But I wish I didn't have to leave the texture control panel open to have hide mesh selection on. I want that as a flag that I can set globally so that I can just leave it on. But the problem is I will forget. I'll let Ben from Boris Effects know. Oh, Ben will hear about this. Hopefully Ben will. I'm hoping to do live streams actually for Boris Effects. I just want to get better at the live streaming. And it's one of those things that if you practice, you get better at it. So this is just me practicing. Okay, good enough. I'm going to just drag the texture control panel over onto this other screen over on the left that you can't see. And do you want to see me do the eyeball now, or should I just wait to do this another day? I feel like I should do the eyeball now. Let's turn off solid meshes and go into the trackers room. So, okay, here we go. Let's look at, I'm going to hide our meshes for both the eyeball and the, let's hide the object too. Let's see how much the eye moves around. It moves around kind of a lot. Okay, that's good. So for these 100 frames, we're going to track the eye. And we're going to do this. Object 02, that is, that's the whole head. I'm just wondering where I'm going to put these trackers for the time being. They're just, let me show you the order in which you're supposed to do this stuff. I'm going to turn the track mesh back on, and I'm going to turn on the sphere, which is going to be the eye. Let's rename that and double click and just go eye. There, now it's the eye mesh. And let's change the color of the eye mesh to white, just so it contrasts better. There we go. The other thing we can do is turn down the opacity considerably so that we can see through it. I am going to turn off the mesh 03. Again, this little gizmo for rescaling your mesh, that's super cool that that was added. But again, I want to be able to turn it off because it's just more clutter on screen. If you're not using it and you don't need it, allow me to turn it off. Okay. Let's get the eyeball. Let's zoom in. And I'm going to rotate this mesh around a bit so that the pupil looks like it's kind of in the right place. And what I want to do now with mesh 03, and this is going to be, now we're going to talk about what the H in GeoH means. So we've got our object, which is, what is our object here? Let's turn it off, turn that back on, and turn on track mesh 1. Okay, so this is the original object that we did a GeoH track with, that we used the geometry. That's what the geo part of GeoH track comes from. We don't have any trackers. If you look under object 1, there are no trackers. So the mesh itself becomes the tracker. That's pretty cool. But that's not the object we want right now. We're going to look at object 2. Object 2, I can move these meshes up to object 1 because all of these meshes are the head. So they're just attached to the to object 01 up here. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I feel like I have to explain this a little better. So if you have multiple meshes under an object and you're going to do a GeoH track using a mesh, all the meshes are going to be in conflict with one another because Synthesize won't know, well, which one of these meshes do you want to use as the tracker mesh? And that's a problem. So there should really only be one mesh if you're going to do a legit GeoH track like this. Use any post-processing to track the shot? I do. Before, not on this shot, but my pipeline, we put everything through Neat Video and it all gets denoised. That's the only thing I do. So it'll come in as an EXR. It'll be either in ACES or it'll just be a straight linear EXR. Those then go through the tracking pipeline, which it's just a preset that we have set up here. That takes it from linear color space into Rec 709, gets denoised, and then gets converted back into, we typically will use like Arri log C3. So that, and then that Arri log C3 file gets written out as a proxy file. So we use DWAB compression EXRs for that, or I'll just write them out as ProRes 422 QuickTime movies. And that's only so that they're in log space. That's it. And you can use literally any log color space. You could be Sony Venice, like Sony log 3, or I forget all the. There's just too much to know. Too many things. I've forgotten more about this stuff than most people will ever know. Anyway, so let's retrack this, is what I'm saying. This is all sitting under there. I also have a script that I wrote in Cynthia, and it's called, what is it? Like, we have utilities, processor, add scene, add scene folder. So this Cynthia script is now going to add, yeah, sure, that's fine. It doesn't matter. It's going to add a camera, and it's going to be a render camera that doesn't actually track anything. And I've just renamed it folder. And so now I can take other things in the scene, like these two meshes, and I can just drag them up into that to get them out of the way. So I don't have to deal with those anymore. I'm just going to use this mesh. This is now going to be my mesh. And object 1, which I'm going to turn back on so we can see it. Let's go back to frame 0. We're going to go to the GeoH room. Let's go into quad perspective for this. And I'm going to... how do we want to do this? Edit pivots, I think. No, not edit pivots. I think we actually have to do this in the 3D room, and you have to hit whole. And now I can move that object into the middle of my mesh. So we're just going to say that this mesh is going to be now our track mesh, and that's going to be the mesh we use for tracking. Let's turn off whole. I'm going to move this up a little bit so that it's lined up. I'm also going to change the color to white so that we can see it better. There we go. Let's move it over a little bit. Yeah, that's good. So now our object is in the middle of the mesh. I can actually, with the whole button, I'm going to zero out its rotation. And that's fine. Let's go back into GeoH track. So we're going to do the same thing we did yesterday, just because it's cool. And we're going to say object 1. Let's say object Geo. These are all... I'm going to lock all of these. Just ignore what I'm doing right here. We're going to lock all of those for the time being. And then I'm going to go back to object 1. And I'm going to unlock translation and rotation completely. And I'm going to make a keyframe on frame 0. And as I said yesterday, GeoH tracking, there's no solve button. You don't press the solve button at any time. You just play. And then when you play, so if you just step forward, I'm just tapping the D key on the keyboard. I'm just holding down the D key. And all the tracking that's being done is being done by the mesh. It's not really holding on very well, is it? What's going on here? Hang on. Let me get back to here and figure out what I've done wrong. It's entirely also probable. Let's get rid of this track mesh 03 and move that off of there. Sometimes, so the way the GeoH tracker works, if you do what I did where you like rotate the parent object, that can cause huge problems because of the way that Synthesize is designed. So I'm going to recreate that GeoH object. GeoH create, hold down the shift key, and I will just put it in the middle of the mesh like that. So that's good. Let's make that object white. And I'm going to get rid of object 01. All of these trackers, this was for an earlier track I did. I remember. Oh, yeah. Let's get object 01 out of there. I'm just going to put that in the folder. Now it's hidden in my folder, which is really just a camera that has no image associated with it. All right, we're going back to camera 1, going back to this object track, and we've created a new GeoH object. There's a keyframe there. Let's unlock everything, and I'm going to retrack it and distance. Nope, can't do that. I have set a keyframe. Oh, it needs to have the mesh. So track mesh 03 needs to be under the object. And it's telling you right here, replace the existing mesh with the track mesh, because if you have two meshes in there, it's not going to know what to do. So I'm moving the I back under that. So track mesh 03 is now going to be our object. I'm sorry if all of that was very unclear. I know that I did not do a great job of that. Put that out there. I'm going to move that back onto the object. And key, what's going on? Oh, come on, you saw me do this yesterday. It was so good. Object 02, object 03. Oh, I see what the problem is. I lost track of things. Track mesh 03 goes on object 3. Object 02 goes under object 03. So this is going to be the I parent. We're just going to call that I parent just to stop, just to disambiguate this. That's better. And then this is going to be the lizard parent object. Okay. I'm very sorry about all of that, everyone. We're going to lock all of the I parent. And we're going to go to the lizard head and unlock all of this. Okay, there we go. So there. Very sorry. Anyway, that's tracking, and it's tracking using the mesh, and I don't have any trackers in there. It just tracked it. So that's pretty cool. Now, I do have complaints, because I always have complaints. If you look at the object right there, it does this kind of bouncy in and out stuff. That's not good. We don't like that. You know, that's not very smooth. So what we can do is we can go through here and actually, like, this is the z-axis, okay, right? So we can actually lock the z-axis as it is, and we can manually put in keyframes for the z-axis. I'm holding on the control key to kind of slow it down. Let's do another one like frame. Yeah, let's do it all the way to the end. So you can actually hand keyframe these channels, and if you notice now, it's maintaining the z-axis. And it's using my keyframes, and it's only calculating the X and Y and the rotation for the pan, tilt, and roll. So this is where GeoH tracking gets really powerful. So you can actually hand keyframe parts of it while also letting SynthEyes do the heavy lifting on other things that it's tracking. You can do this with 2D trackers, with supervised trackers, and you can do it with the geometry tracking like I'm showing you right here. But that smoothed things out quite a bit. Now our you know, our solved path is much smoother, and it looks fine in camera and probably will work great. Okay, so what else do we have here? So the iParent object. I am going to just drag the eye out so that it's no longer parented. It no longer has a a parent object. I'm going to actually delete the iParent object. And we're going to give this iParent object, we're going to make a new GeoH. We're going to, where is that? GeoH create. It's still, that button is selected. So if I just hit the shift key and then hold that down while I'm dragging, I'm going to drag it right into the center of my eyeball, which we really can't see very well. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to hit the 8 key here. Let's actually zoom in and zoom out. Okay, so we're going to do that again. GeoH is create is on, and I'm going to hit the shift key. Nope, that's not what I want. GeoH create. I'm going to hit the shift key down here, and now we can see. So we want to be like right in the middle of our object. So this looks like I'm pretty much in the middle. Yeah, that's good. It would be nice if I could just click the object. Maybe I can. I'm going to just try that. I click the object and then, no, see, that's not right. It's not in the middle. That's a little too far forward. So this is kind of what I don't like about, building stuff in the GeoH room. Like setting these up, it should just be more like, get it, click. I want it right in the middle of the mesh and having to move it around. One thing you should also know is if you take your finger off the space bar, it'll actually do it calculating it based on the normal, and it'll put it on the surface. But for this, we just want it to be in the middle. Great. So that is object 02. And object 02 needs to be parented to object 1. So replace existing track mesh 03 on. Hold on, cancel that. I want object 02, which is going to be the iParent. I want that to be parented to the head parent. There we go. So now when I hit play, the eye is going to track with our head mesh. So that looks pretty good. That's great. If we don't get the parent object for the eye mesh, that sphere, if we don't get it right in the middle, it's going to be a problem. Here. There, so now I can talk to you. So if it's not right in the middle of the mesh and we calculate just the rotations, it's not going to be able to figure it out. But I'll show you that. All right. To do this, we're going to need to do a little bit of supervised 2D tracking now. So we're going to go back to the trackers room, and I'm going to hide our meshes. And we can even hide our objects. So hide that spline. And hide track mesh 03. That's hidden. Lizard head parent is hidden. Good. All right. What is that? That is object 01, and it's hidden in our little, folder. All right. So what we're going to track here, we need to track the rotation of the eye, which, it's very fast and it's really high frequency. So let's find a feature that we're going to be able to hold on to the entire time. I think I'm going to track this backward. I don't recommend doing that. I don't do a lot of backward tracking, but I hit the backward button. Let's shrink that down a bit and make our search area bigger. And we'll set key now and key smooth to 4 and 4. And go 1. Okay. No, I don't want the full screen cam. How's that happen? So this is funny. This has happened before. OBS sometimes will switch scenes on me and it'll like make me full screen. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. I want everybody to be able to see what I'm doing. So it might be just safer to leave it like this. But like I said, I have to practice to get better at this. All right, so let's keep going. I'm going to track backward on the eye. And then, so here, the eye just goes super crazy. And we're going to turn off 5. 5 is going to keep the tracker centered. So when that happens, there we go. Yeah, that's the same feature. We just have to, I'm just tapping the S key now, because I'm tracking backward. And now I'm tapping the F key to bounce between keyframes. So that's why I keep my fingers on the ASDF keys. You know, it's like, I have a bunch of guitars in the background that you can see. That you can see back there. And I should play them more. I should play them a lot more. I haven't had a lot of time to do that. But I liken this ASDF key in Synthesize to, it's like learning, you know, the chords on the fretboard of the guitar. This is just like a musical instrument. So I recommend practicing using the ASDF keys. Now, here's the other thing. All the tracking that we do here at the Matchmoving company, we never get easy tracks. We never get the like, hey, the auto button is great. You know, like, we want everything to be automatic. No, I don't even like doing shots like that. Because what fun is that? Like, you just press a button and then it's done. There's no problem solving there. I'm gonna hit the 5 key again to stay centered. And all right, let's go here. Hold on. Okay, so that's gonna be right there. So when you see stuff like this, where everything gets just turned into a complete blur, you just have to get good at tracking it, because it requires human judgment to determine where that tracker is going to be. All right, let's put a keyframe there, and then it's going to be in this. I always say aim for the middle of the blur. I'm kind of famous for that, or at least I was at one point. People used to make fun of me for it. That's our guy. Aim for the middle of the blur. And you want to aim for the middle of the blur because, you know, if you get these long, like if you're tracking, I don't know, on a freeway, on a highway, the dashes on the road, if you start tracking the ends of those motion blurred long dashes, that's not, like, those dashes stretch out and shrink as the motion it changes. So anyway, let's keep going, and we're done. So I'm gonna keyframe that. Let's switch it back to forward mode and see if it tracks forward. We're gonna have problems if we do that, but maybe not. Oh, no. I always like to do this, like where I track it backward and then forward to make sure that it continues to stay on target, because at times like this, yeah, it's actually on target. It's just his eye is flickering around so fast. Let's make sure that's looking good. Oh yeah, that looks great. Look at that. All right. So now what do we do? So we used the mesh itself to do the tracking for the lizard head. But this time we're going to use this 2D tracker. We're going to go back into the GeoH room. And we're going to turn our eye back on. And we're going to do something I showed yesterday, which was the track. So we have that tracker selected. And we're going to go drop onto mesh. So that little tracker on the mesh is right where that little red plus looking thing is. That's our constraint. That's our position constraint. Let's turn this track mesh back on so we can see the face and the lizard head parent, I guess. You know, let's make the eye parent white as well. It's just easier to see, that's all. That's the only reason I do that. Okay, now, this is what I was saying. If your eye isn't, if the center of the eye object, the parent object, isn't in the middle of the eye exactly, and that's where the center of rotation is. Let's assume that that's where the center of rotation is, the middle of the eye. If that center of rotation isn't right, it's not going to work. I had to take another drink. Okay, so here we go. Let's give it a shot. We've got our eye parent selected. We're only going to calculate the pan, tilt, and roll. We're not going to calculate the position. And we'll see if it works. We'll see if we have it in the right place. But I'm just going to tap forward. I'm going very slowly. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, yeah. Okay, so here. So this isn't right. Right on these frames, let me turn the opacity back up on this mesh. Opacity, where is that? 3D opacity, turn it all the way up. So obviously our eye is not in the right physical position. But so this is what Synthesize will do. Synthesize is going to do its best to accommodate the track as close as it can. And this is where GeoH tracking gets really powerful. I want to do a tutorial where basically we do a scan of the whole body and have the actor walking around, moving around, and then use 2D trackers to drive the joints, but only on the axes that we need to control. And I mean, it should be able to do this. Anyway. Okay, I know, but I'm really hoping for that airy box style body. I'm reading your comments. That'll be interesting. I have not seen this Lumix GH7. Airy licensed all their color silence to Panasonic to use outside the GH7. Sorry, guys, this was totally off topic. No, it's really cool, actually. I have actually said I don't think I'm going to buy another camera body ever again in my life. I mean, they just keep getting better and better, whatever. But at the same time, the last tutorial that I released, no, it's not even a tutorial. It was like the history of my medical situation. Half of it was shot on this. Half of it was shot on this camera, which is a Blackmagic Pocket 6K, and then not even half, like a third of it, and then the other third, the B-roll stuff was all shot on a Panasonic A7, not a Panasonic, a Sony A7. And it all just cuts together. It just all looks beautiful. So anyway. All right, so back here. So what are we going to do? So there are two ways that we can try and deal with this. I mean, if we wanted to be really correct about it, it would be getting the eye in the right position so that the rotation calculations worked better. But here, hold on. Let me move this over. I think we can accommodate this if we merely do back in the GeoH room with the I parent, if we also let it solve for the X and Y. Let's try that. Let's see what happens. No, that is bad. That is actually really bad. So that was not a good idea. And the reason why that was not a good idea is because our anchor point is on the surface of the eye. So I'm going to have to think about this. Here's something we can do. I know how we can solve this problem. So this rotation works really well from here to about, no. Oh, yeah, hold on. We have to relock those. And I'm going to have to recalculate all of this just so it's generally right. Okay, and then it goes out of position here. All right, so here's what we can do to fix this. Remember when I was saying earlier we can hand keyframe things? Well, we'll just hand keyframe it into position. So we'll put keyframes. We'll just hit the key button here. And to make a keyframe here on X, Y, and Z, we're actually going to have to hold down the control key and just kind of jiggle these knobs a little bit. Because when you hit key, it doesn't put keyframes on those. And we don't need keyframes on these. So we have a keyframe there on frame 66, and then 1, 2. Okay, so just over those 2 frames where it just kind of moves out of position a little bit, let's physically move it. Now this is also very cool. As I'm moving it, you can see it updating in real time. I don't have to play through or anything. It just updates in real time. It's very cool. I wish I had a button though that could do this all the time. Like I wish I could just have it always calculating in real time for everything, but that goes a bit beyond what we're discussing here today. But there, now the eye is perfect. And then we might even want but when we get to here, this frame is the last frame right before it starts to rotate. I'm going to do a little nudging around here again on the X and Y axis. You'll see that the whole thing is rotating around that place where I dropped the tracker onto the mesh. So there. Good enough. I mean, you get the idea now. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good. And then once it's done tracking and calculating like that, what you need to do in the GeoH room is just like trackers, like 2D supervised trackers, you do have to lock them. Otherwise, it's going to retrack every time. So I should have locked the head parent before. But that's why, it takes, the eye parent is now locked and the head parent is now locked. Okay, good. And now it just plays. Like you see how fast it plays. Let's go into the 3D room. Let's right click on Pan 2D. Now look at our work. View, normal speed. That's pretty cool. Nice. Good job. Good job, us. So that was it. I think that I've covered it all. I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. I covered the mesh projection stuff. Fixed that. We're in the 3D room. Let's orbit around a little bit and go solid meshes. We could even with that eye, let's lock that and select the eye, and we'll do the texture panel. Bring that back over, set file. We're gonna go iJPEG, open, and we're gonna make that be best pixel, 1024, 1024, that's all good. I'm going to run that. Meshes must be set to create texture. Good. There we go. Now our eye is now texture mapped. We could probably do a better job of that, but good enough. Okay, I'm moving that off screen. And hey, look, there we go. There's our eye moving around. Fun times. Obviously, the texture could be better, but you get the idea. So I hope that was helpful, everyone. And I hope that I made good on my screw-ups from last time we looked at this. Any other questions before I leave? What are you all talking about here? Hi from Brazil. Hi, Brazil. I have always trouble when I have to track objects in the scene. Would be nice for a tutorial for the best approach in delivery. Delivery is a whole thing because with delivery, that all depends on the client. Like, what do they want? Or if you're in a company, what your pipeline demands. And so I do work for a lot of different VFX companies, many, many different VFX companies. So the pipeline for output is always different. But anyway, there you go. This was a very long stream. And you're welcome. I'm happy to do it. What else are we talking about? Did I miss anybody else? What about getting Insta360 for on-set supervising? I have, is an Insta360 like a 360 camera, like a Ricoh Theta? I'm guessing it is. But yeah, that would be great. I mean, if you want to just do like set surveys, like I lay out in my years and years old set survey tutorials, yeah, the 360 camera would be great for that. More people should actually shoot set surveys, and I really wish that was more of a industry-wide adopted thing. Oh, you mean like attach that 360 camera to another camera to help drive the track for the other camera? I've seen people do that. I don't know that I would do it on every shot. It's a lot of work, a lot of overhead to do that. But for very specific visual effects shots, yes. But doing a general on-set survey, obviously your best bet is LiDAR. So now I'm just sitting here watching this lizard with its eye googling around. That was not bad. Set survey with 360 camera seems like a great idea. It's it is a great idea. There are benefits and disadvantages to doing that. As with all things, LiDAR is always the best, but LiDAR takes a long time to acquire and to process. Do I need to do anything different to track iPhone shots and synthesize? No. Aspect ratio doesn't matter. Frame rate doesn't matter. Yeah, just however you want to, whatever you get out of. And by the way, all my old set surveys I would shoot with a DJI Osmo and my iPhone, and I would just walk around the set and shoot my set survey. You do not need to have a particularly high quality camera. The only thing I don't like about the 360 cameras is that because you're stretching all of your pixels through a Mercator projection map, generally, it's about the economy of, UVs in a spherical projection, and it's just kind of wasteful. And you also get, the features don't sometimes look great, and they're harder to track. But anyway, and you're welcome. The survey shots, I wish more people shot those. I see them every once in a while, but Most of the time, though, on the films that I'm working on, they tend to be the higher budget films and the much bigger, you know, projects. So you'll get LiDAR on things like that. And LiDAR is always the best. It's the most accurate and it's the best. So there you go. All right. Any more questions about our googly lizard here with its eyeball? The eyeball's not even in the right place. It's not really embedded in the mesh. But that doesn't look bad. Like also in the screen that you're looking at here, that's a projected map onto my mesh that I took out of Blender. So here's a crazy idea. If we want to attach a camera to the main cam, why not attach iPhone and use CamTrack AR app, which captures camera moves? Yes, there's my friend. What is the name? Not Jet Set. Not. I can't remember. If I'll see if I can put in the notes on this. But there's another company that does that, and it will. You basically get LiDAR from the phone, and it's nice. That strange LiDAR can provide a lot of data like depth, which is really useful for VFX work or VR. Yes, indeed. Yes to all of the above. Okay, I think commercials never have the time or budget. I just finished working on a Cinnamon Toast Crunch commercial, and guess what? It didn't have anything. It didn't have any of that. And a Nike commercial also did not have any of that. But at the same time, I've also seen commercials where they did have the time and budget. It's just a matter of the commercial. The next tutorial that, what was I going to do? If you have any suggestions, also put them in the comments, and I will happily take those suggestions for future live streams. I've done a live stream every day now, all week. So I don't know that I'm going to be able to keep that up. We just came off of 2 big back-to-back jobs. No, 3 back-to-back jobs. 1 huge feature film and then 2 commercials. And so it's, I might not be able to do this every single day, but this was fun. But that's it. That's all I've got for you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you all soon.